Welcome to Leaders Recon, where we'll be discussing leadership, warrior skills, and other unique opportunities within the G3 Leader Development Branch. I'm your host, Joshua Carr, and today we'll be discussing standing up a new Airborne Battalion within the formation. With us is Lieutenant Colonel Hanger and Sergeant Major Goodenberger, the command team for this new battalion. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
For those in the audience who are not familiar with your background, could you tell us a little bit about your experience joining the military and your career so far?
Absolutely. I've been in the Army for nearly 25 years now. I enlisted right after college as an enlisted 95 Bravo back then, which was military police. I earned my commission through the Federal Officer Candidate School in 1999. After that, I was commissioned as an infantry officer and then PCS to Fort Riley, Kansas, where I was a mechanized infantry platoon leader and executive officer. After that, I transitioned to the Nebraska Army National Guard, where I started my National Guard career at Camp Ashland with the 209th Regional Training Institute as an officer candidate school instructor. Deployed with the 209th to Afghanistan, met some of the full-timers, so they encouraged me to apply for positions when we got back from deployment. So about a year later, I left the civilian sector and started with the Nebraska Army National Guard full-time. Around the same time, that's when I ran into then First Sergeant Goodenberger. We were the command team of the 195th Forward Support Company, which is Special Operations Forward Support Company, an airborne unit out of Omaha, Nebraska. We deployed that organization in 2011 in support of the CJ SOTF in OEF 17 rotation. Upon coming back, went to Command and General Staff Officer course, resident down at Fort Leavenworth. Came back from that. I was the Command Group Executive Officer or the Secretary of the General Staff for the Nebraska Army National Guard. Then did 3 years at a joint assignment at STRATCOM, and I'm currently the Deputy G1 for the state of Nebraska, in addition to my M-Day assignment as the Battalion Commander for the 2nd Battalion, 134th Infantry.
What about you, Sergeant Major? What made you want to join the military back in the day?
Well, for me, back in the day, it was joining for the money to go to college. Here in Nebraska, I've been in the Nebraska National Guard for 33 years. Once I did my initial enlistment, I figured out that I kind of really liked being a soldier. So I re-enlisted, and I've just been working hard and keeping after it this whole time. And here we are 33 years later.
When you look back at your accomplishments so far in your career, what's really stood out to you?
You want to take that one first, Sergeant Major?
Sure thing, sir. Of course, accomplishments in the military is, I think it's a complicated term from the standpoint of there's a lot that goes into to having an accomplishment just to begin with. Success is always, what we strive for. But when it comes to my accomplishments, personally, I think, my accomplishments are all based in the groups that I've led and the groups that I've been with. That teamwork is it's beyond anything that an individual could ever do. And, from my experience, being able to be with multiple different groups, whether it may be combat arms, combat support, that's truly what I see as an accomplishment, is that we are able to bring people together in the Nebraska National Guard and complete the missions that we do with the high success rate that we have.
I would like to echo, what Sergeant Major said. Really, just having the opportunity to be in a place where I can help other people to succeed through collaborative efforts. My success that I've had, or relative success, has certainly been a product of having a lot of good people around me, and I've always tried to allow the people that I work with and around, or that I'm in command of now, to flourish. Allow them to do things their way, as long as it wasn't unethical or immoral. I found out a long time ago, if soldiers, if you give them the opportunity to do it their way, they're more apt to do it very, very well, instead of telling them exactly how you want to do it. If they are willing to put in the effort and own the process, again, as long as it's not illegal, unethical, or immoral, to let them do it, and then you get that buy-in from them. But Sergeant Major and I have had the pleasure to see a lot of really quality leaders that we've been around, do a lot of amazing things all throughout the organization. And that's probably been what's been the nicest to see, and gives me probably the most pride just to see what everybody else is doing that we've had an opportunity to serve with.
Sir, could you give us a brief overview of what it means to stand up an airborne battalion and what capabilities exist within that formation?
Well, I guess what it means is that within the National Guard, Army National Guard, that we, for at least two brigade combat teams are going to retain an opportunity to, deliver soldiers to the battlefield through an airborne operation. All total, we're talking about 750 authorizations for paid parachutist positions when you look at the entire uh, requirement. So that would be the organic infantry battalion, the headquarters company, all three rifle companies, the weapons company, the forward support company, India company out of the 700th Brigade Support Battalion. Plus, you will have approximately 40 authorizations for fire supporters out of the Fires Battalion from Oklahoma. What that does is that gives the 45th Brigade commander in whatever division that we're supporting the capability to seize key terrain, through an airborne operation. I guess if you kind of or read the history or following what's been going on in the National Guard, when multiple states had a long-range surveillance capability, I believe this was the previous director's work to maintain that airborne capability, and they kind of consolidated the requirement with the paid parachutist positions into a second airborne battalion. The way the force managers aligned everything that went to the 45th Brigade Combat Team, and we were fortunate enough to gain that force structure. Again, we had the history to be able to pull it off. We have really, I think in the hard part is the enablers that we already had a leg up on, a lot of the other states, because, we have a host of very, very capable airborne logisticians and sustainers that were already in the state, and we could transfer that over. It's kind of easy to, in reality, to go find a young, man or a young woman that wants to, be a maneuver paratrooper, but it's kind of a niche market to find the enablers everywhere when you're talking about one unit in one state in the middle part of America.
So, sir, part of building a brand new unit here is establishing the heraldry with that unit. What was that process like for you?
Well, for us, it kind of posed a unique challenge because the 134th Infantry has been around for a long time, but because of some force integration actions and things like that, a lot of our lineage had passed over to the Cav Squadron that we have. So really, 2nd Battalion, 134th is actually, from a heraldry standpoint, a brand new unit. So some of the advice I would give to a state that's standing up a brand new unit, there's a heraldry aspect. You have to design your colors. You have to design a distinctive unit insignia. And for us, we had the opportunity to actually design a flash and oval that we'll wear on our berets and our Class A uniform. So I have one that we just got fresh off the manufacturer. So this is 2nd Battalion, 134th Infantry Flash. I would like to say a big thank you to the Institute of Heraldry for all the work that they did helping us develop that. So our colors are designed. Our flash, we got those, so we can start everybody wearing the beret, and our distinctive unit insignia will probably be arriving later on this summer. So it gave us a unique opportunity to incorporate some of the history that we have here in Nebraska and try to capture the warrior culture of here with the Lakota Sioux tribe out in western Nebraska. So our unit motto is actually a Lakota Sioux term. It's Mapia Itanhan, which means from the sky. So we're very proud of that, our heritage, and it actually dovetails very well into the 45th Brigade in their Native American heritage down in Oklahoma. So all of the subordinate battalions have a tribal, I don't want to say affiliation, but a name, and ours, of course, is going to be Team Lakota. So we're the Lakota Squadron, or excuse me, the Lakota Battalion up here in Nebraska. Part of the 45th Brigade Combat Team.
So diving into that, this is the 2nd Airborne Battalion in the National Guard force structure, with the 143rd being the only other unit out of Texas. Can you kind of define what makes the Airborne Battalion unique?
There's been airborne capability scattered throughout the National Guard for quite a long time, but a full infantry or airborne infantry battalion is kind of tricky to get stood up and maintain on the reserve component. For us, we were fortunate that we're really building this organization around a couple of units that were already had an airborne heritage. So that's been very, very helpful to start off with out of the 195th, which is now our India Company, 700th BSB or Brigade Support Battalion. So they're already airborne qualified, the preponderance of them. And then the infantrymen that came over from our former long range surveillance company are kind of the nucleus of our airborne soldiers in the organization. And then we're just kind of building out from there.
The unit falls under the 45th IBCT out of Oklahoma. I thought I saw you already rocking the Thunderbird patch there.
We are.
What kind of challenges does that entail for you guys as a command team with the headquarters for the unit being several states away?
Well, it's posing a challenge. That obviously, the first thing is geographic separation. Having different state leadership, and then poses a challenge because you have two sets of requirements. Typically, we brief our unit status reports and our yearly training calendars through the state of Nebraska, but we also try to align it with what the 45th is doing, and we're on different battle rhythms there. So what we've already done for Nebraska a couple months ago, Oklahoma just did last week. So we're changing products around and things like that, which I would say is a common obstacle that any unit that has a headquarters outside of the state. We're not unique in that regard, but it is hard. So we're minimizing, if we can, the duplication of work because we're working through two different states, and what those state products want to look like. But otherwise, the 45th, Colonel Wyatt, the commander, has been incredible, offering up as much support as he can. And we've really been searching for opportunities for us to plug into that staff down there and figure out how we're going to move forward, which has obviously been sidelined a little bit with the COVID pandemic.
So Sergeant Major, kind of going over to you and the soldier training piece of this. I know the commander mentioned that this was comprised of several airborne units before. Obviously, everyone has to get airborne qualified. Is everyone just going straight to airborne school, or what does it look like on your end for the personnel side on getting soldiers up to meet all those minimum basic qualifications?
Yes, of course. When you're trying to start something as big as this is going to be, there are those challenges with trying to get the slots at the airborne school, and of course, we're bringing in lots of new people, not only just fresh recruits, but we're also pulling people in from other units within the state. So airborne is a challenge. Everybody that is going to go there eventually. But right now, our focus is professional military education, and then of course MOSQ. That we got to get people into those categories first, and then we'll start cracking the nut on the airborne. All of our fresh recruits in the pipeline, they're having that contracted in. So as soon as they're done with AIT, they're sliding right over and they're getting their airborne knocked out. Some of the old dogs that have come in from other units, they're slotting, they're getting their times, they're just on a OML trying, order of merit list. So once their time's there, then we're getting them down there and they're knocking it all out. But it's going to take some time.
Does the battalion have a unique drill schedule or additional funding or training days for maintaining that airborne status, or what does that look like?
We do. We do what's called the Code 42s. So that allows us additional periods specifically to get ready for airborne operations. So we can include those on the front of unit training assembly dates and things like that to allow us more time to prepare, because it just does take a significant amount of time to go through the process, keeping people current. And even when we are current, it takes several hours to get the unit through refresher training, the shoot issue, jump master pre-inspection, all that stuff. There's a lot of time that can be kind of idle when it comes to an airborne operation.
So, sir, you talked a little bit about how the Airborne Battalion is made out of the old long-range surveillance companies. How is that translated into the Airborne Battalion, and what are some of the challenges that you've overcome with the shift in the mindset from the long-range surveillance companies to the Airborne Infantry Battalion?
Well, actually, those challenges so far have been theoretical, just due to when we stood up. What we've been able to do in our limited time, where we're actually assembling. We've had very limited opportunities for our rifle companies to actually get out on the ground. And I can speak more, to the companies in Nebraska, but really, it's been kind of a challenge. It is a different mission. Most time, the long range surveillance is, kind of viewed as, I guess you could say, an elite organization. Not every soldier gets to do that. Typically, you're going to start out in a rifle company, and then kind of work your way up, and they'll be able to select the best of the best. But if in Nebraska, that's if you could get recruited right into the LURS company, so you don't know any other aspect of being infantryman other than long range surveillance. I would say that probably the biggest thing, in my opinion, from what I've seen, coming out of a mechanized, rifle company, back when I did my company time, and it was different. We didn't have all the automated battle command systems and everything else that we do now. But back then, it was I really focused on trying to put out a simple order and then rehearsing it until everybody felt comfortable with it. I mean, we knew our SOPs inside and out. And I think it was, in a way, it was easier to kind of get your head around. In the day of information, so many echelons are looking for so many different products that really you kind of get bogged down. But I think, to answer your question in a nutshell, most of our LURS professionals are used to having a lot more time to plan and spend less time executing. And we're trying to kind of shift a paradigm that, hey, we're going to execute simple plans that you can flex from. And we're doing closing with and destroying the enemy. We're not trying to infiltrate, and surveil an objective and report back. It's just a different set of challenges. And the soldiers are professionals. A lot of our rifle company NCOs have been through ranger school, so I know they get it. It's they just haven't done it so much, and it's been a long time since they've just gotten out. And plus, it's expanded so much, where they used to be able to be a little bit more selective in who they let in there if a soldier was going to change from a different MOS to infantry to join the LURS. Now we're recruiting right into it. So I don't want to say that it's just different. It has to be more inclusive than exclusive. And so it's just taking a little bit of an adjustment.
And sir, speaking of some of those support units, what does that look like for the support required for an airborne battalion being out there in Nebraska? It's got to be different from Fort Bragg, where everything's in one place. What kind of support is required, and what needs to be facilitated still?
Well, currently in the state of Nebraska, we still have a rigger support team, which is remnants of a rigger detachment that we used to have in the state, because we've had airborne units for over 30 years. In Nebraska, we've had people on paid parachute duty for a long time, so we've had the structure. Well, it's kind of dwindled down now, so we only have about 8 riggers left that are on jump status. But we do have 120 chutes that met the requirement for what we needed previous to that. So as of right now, we can still manage within the state, but we're exploring through our G4 and our G3. We're exploring opportunities outside of the state. So of course, Indiana has a substantial rigger footprint there, and our Charlie company is actually located in Indiana. So we've been doing a lot of correspondence with their leadership over there regarding their rigger capability and how we can get online and sooner. It's pre-decisional. I don't want to say that that's exactly where we're going to go, but I think it makes sense, and that's the way things are kind of leaning. So the airborne community is small. A lot of people know each other when they go to different conferences and things like that. So the senior NCOs and the warrant officers do a lot of coordination when they go to those. Is very, very beneficial. So a lot of those soldiers know what's going on, and they're forward thinking and really kind of developing the relationships prior to. So in a way, it almost becomes a formality when the state leadership hears about it, that everybody that's actually going to do the work and make it happen are already coordinated with it and are online. So that's been a help.
We spoke about some of the demands required related to airborne operations. Can you give us an idea of what kind of soldier you're looking for in that formation and some of the unique opportunities afforded to the airborne infantrymen?
The kind of soldier that we're looking for is one that is committed. They're committed to doing this soldiering that we're asking them to do. Might be jumping out of airplanes, might be jumping out of helicopters. It could be just doing the personnel side. We don't, but the thing that we're looking for is commitment. We don't need people that are just interested in being an airborne infantryman. We need them to be committed. And that's really what I'm looking for in a soldier. Uh, the unique opportunities that are out there, of course, the first and foremost leadership school in the Army, Ranger course, that is an option for most of our formation. And we also have soldiers that have attended and soldiers that will attend the sniper school. We just had, I think it was 4 soldiers complete the expert infantry badge competition or the qualifications, and so that's another thing that's open to infantrymen. And then, of course, you get some of the competitions that are fun, more like the marksmanship competitions, and then there's some jump fest parachuting competitions that are available out there also. But first and foremost, we want people that are committed to being airborne infantry.
All right, so so what we're really looking for are soldiers that are committed to being paratroopers. We're looking for soldiers that are going to dedicate themselves to fundamentals, to fitness. We have been receiving a lot of interest from soldiers outside of the state. The best way to get in contact with us is to go to our website, that is ne.ng.mil. And it'll show all of the opportunities that are out there and how to get in contact with our G1 staff at the state, our recruiting office, or even all the way down to the 2nd Battalion itself.
So Sergeant Major, going back to you, we already talked about a little bit of the unique opportunities with Ranger School, with Jump Master, with Pathfinder. Could you expound a little bit about what does the Pathfinder do for the organization? What does the Jump Master do for the organization? For those that are not really as familiar with that.
Yes, starting with our Pathfinders. Our Pathfinders, they go to a very intense school to learn how to locate, survey, and then run a drop zone. I mean, they're out there on the ground. They know how to measure speeds, wind speeds. They know how to, they have all these technical things that they have to do so the aircraft can get to the right drop zone and put people out on the right mark. Of course, that's the simple answer. They do a lot more than that. Jump masters, they really are. They're the rule makers. They have the skill set how to get somebody rigged up in a parachute correctly, getting them in the airplane correctly, getting them out of the airplane correctly. And that school itself is a very, very intense school also. So our people that are doing these specific tasks they're some of the best and the brightest in the Army National Guard, that's for sure. And every one of them, they're committed to what they're doing, because these aren't the schools that people just go to because it sounds like a good time. This is something that is very unique to the airborne community, but it's the underlying safety factor that these folks are concerned with, and that's why they go to these schools. And they're just so valuable to what we're doing. And
Sir, kind of going back to you, I know you hit on this a little bit already, but filling an entire new battalion of soldiers has to be a challenge. Are you looking for soldiers currently? And if so, how should someone reach out?
Absolutely. Right now, strength is an issue for us, but we're growing. We're growing on average of 1% to 2% a month. So we've grown over 100 soldiers since we stood up in September. We're having a lot of interest. Nationwide. We get calls almost every day to the battalion where soldiers hear about it. We're working strength through our recruiting and retention battalion. We're working the active duty installations as soldiers transition out. So I guess, really the best way, we do have some social media platforms and everything that we monitor. And, soldiers are already locating the information, contacting the state of Nebraska, and they get directed down to us. And we do receive a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails. So word's kind of getting out, which is a really, really good thing. And, like I said, right now, we're trying to be inclusive, really, I'm not saying we're taking anybody, but, we're, the people that are seeking us out that aggressively or really taking that first step, towards commitment to the unit because they want to be there. I mean, if you think about it, they're at least a two-time volunteer. They volunteered for the Army. They volunteered to be a paratrooper. So we're just helping them, fulfill their goals in the Nebraska Army National Guard.
So transitioning a little bit, we're meeting virtually today due to the ongoing COVID pandemic. I'm sure that's played a role in the challenges with virtual training and online training over the past few months. What are the challenges that you faced? And I guess, or better yet, what's your advice and lessons learned to those that are out there trying to stand up new units?
Well, we're in the middle of that challenge right now. So we've been given guidance on how to conduct a virtual IDT. We just got approval today from our G3 through from our adjutant general that we can actually assemble soldiers in groups of 10 or less as long as we take appropriate precautions. So for us, that really works well and actually allows us the opportunity to go out and conduct good hands-on training at the squad level. And then the virtual environment allows us to really do all the coordination, professional development that we really need to do. And I think it's just thinking outside of the box a little bit, and developing a good agenda, and then your objectives that you're trying to get to, so you can measure it and make sure that you're being prudent with our with the periods that we're paying people to conduct.
So Sergeant Major, having that bench of non-commissioned officers is just so vital for unit success. And it takes years to build. What have you been doing to try to get a jump start on that when standing up a new unit?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to go out and you have to rely on the people that you've worked with in the past. You have to go seek them out, talk to them. If they're not interested in maybe being a part of it, maybe they've got somebody in that they trust, that they know very well that would be a great fit. So you have to get out there and you have to do some footwork. You have to get in front of people. You have to talk to them about it. Because that is one of the hardest things to grow is an experienced NCO. Of course, we are focusing on recruiting. We're recruiting inside the state, outside the state. People can get a hold of us, through our full-time staff, through our websites. They can see what kind of things we have open, different positions. So, when it comes to building that NCO, for me, it's going to start with the brand new guy coming in, because behind every great NCO, you've got a squad or a platoon, or maybe even just a team. But you've got all those guys working together, and that's what's going to grow these NCOs. We already have a large group of very, really experienced NCOs, and so at this point, it's basically we have to continue to communicate consistently, and we need to share the information that we have and that we've developed over our careers with our younger soldiers, our younger NCOs, and we have to challenge them. We have to put that challenge on them to become that airborne infantryman that we're looking for.
And so this is for both of you gentlemen. I know it's only been, 6 months since the unit first stood up. What are your biggest lessons learned so far throughout this whole process, and what is your piece of advice to someone who's standing up a unit somewhere?
Well, I guess I'll take the first cut at this one. Probably the biggest lesson learned is, and we're going to learn it as we go. We had to, kind of choose what we were going to fall in on as far as resourcing and everything else. So in this particular instance, we fell in on what the 195th Ford Sport Company already had resourced as far as training goes, because it met the most of the requirements. because by the time we stood this up, the LERS company had been basically absorbed into other structures. So we had to pull them all back out so that none of them were on jump status. Then we had to start back over from scratch. The other thing is depending on what state you're coming from and what the current force structure looks like in that particular state, you only have a certain amount of soldiers out there that have the qualifications. On one hand, it did give me kind of the flexibility to influence who was going to be on the team starting up. But what I was really looking for, I wasn't looking for branches. I was looking for soldiers that I knew, or officers in particular, that had the right skill set to be able to adapt and knew their craft as far as being a staff officer. For example, is our XO right now is an intel officer, but he's one of the best staff officers we have in the state. We were real fortunate to get him, and he's done great stuff for us. My S3 is an infantry guy, but he's got a lot of other experience as well. And then I have to balance how we're going to move people in and out, because there are only two authorizations, of course, for majors in the state. And one of those is an AGR. So I immediately was going into an officer life cycle issue right before we even started, because I was trying to get these soldiers, they had things that they needed to do. So as soon as I guess if you're starting up an organization, I encourage everybody to really look at it from the old man equip and train construct, because before you know it, you're already going to have personnel issues that you don't even quite realize. There's going to be just a huge amount of personnel changeover. So really load up starting out when you can report C5 in your unit status report, get good personnel people, get good logistics people. And then the training aspect of it is going to start out pretty small, so if you're going to be able to assume a little bit of risk, that's probably where you need to assume it. But get your people set, get your equipment in, get it accounted for, and then the training will kind of follow on. But we're very much trying to to compress that right now, and we're being successful because I guess we have the opportunity to grow into it a little bit.
Just to piggyback there with what the commander said, exactly right. You got to get the building blocks set. So you have to get the personnel, you have to get the equipment. Once you got the base built, the training will follow on. You got to take that one step at a time and focus on not spreading your force too thin.
So earlier, I think both of you talked a little bit about the unique culture within the airborne community. But that also comes with additional requirements to be on jump status and so on and so forth. What are some of the things that you've done or would be your advice to others in maintaining resiliency when you have a higher op tempo?
Well, I think this one, when it comes to in an airborne unit, the part of the commitment, we find out right away whether people are committed to it or not. As an example, I use my Delta Company commander. He was an NCO for Sergeant Major and I when we were the command team of the 195th Forward Support Company. When he was an NCO, he passed up promotion 2 years in a row to stay in our airborne unit and deploy with us, and deployed 2 times with that organization. So he is a committed paratrooper, and he wants to be there. And and that culture that he brings with him, permeates down, through his unit as well. The LERS guys, they stayed on through a lot of uncertainty. They didn't know what was going on with that structure, so it's there. And I think the hard part, the balance is there are people out there, they say, well, the airborne, it's too much of a distractor. Too many people get hurt. It's too hard to recruit to it. But the quality of the soldier that you get on the backside of all the stuff that you have to go through to get them is worth its weight in gold. I mean, they're professionals. They stand out amongst their peers. They have a tendency to get promoted faster, carry more of the burden throughout the organization, and we can just depend on it. And I think that's what the airborne heritage has always been about. And we're going to put our best soldiers that volunteer more than once into the worst place at the worst time, and they're going to come out successful.
So we ask this of all of our guests. What is one resource that you would recommend to a young soldier looking to do some self-development, sir?
One resource, that's really kind of a hard answer because, I don't know if it fits, but I guess I'm going to kind of indirectly answer your question. One, you need to be a reader, and I would actually recommend, not necessarily military self-development, because I think at the end of the day, it is about your people skills. You can be a brilliant tactician, you can know doctrine inside and out, but if you can't, uh, you know, um, create relationships and interact interpersonally with the people around you, I don't think you're going to be as successful. And I'm just going to really quick share my leadership, philosophy, or the vision that I have, that I've set out for the organization. Basically we have three building blocks: resiliency, readiness, and lethality. And we haven't gotten there yet. But the resiliency piece is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness. That's what I encourage all the young soldiers that I'm around. You have to, it's the trifecta, because it all builds on itself. I'm looking, I'm kind of a fitness guy. I enjoy it, but I expect the people around me to be fit. If you're physically fit, you're more likely to be emotionally fit. And then there's, I encourage, people to reach some sort of, spiritual fitness. Then the readiness piece is your basics, know your doctrine at your level, try to learn a little bit higher, if you will, but master the basics, be exceptional at the things that you need to do every day, and you'll be able to build from that. And then the last part of it, as we get deeper into our readiness cycle, is the lethality piece. That's where we put it all together. But if we don't have the solid foundation with each and every soldier, we're never going to be able to put it all together, because we can't depend on them to do what we're asking those soldiers to do.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, Sergeant Major, do you want to kind of give some of your philosophy?
Absolutely. And I've got one word, and that's people. That is your resource. And a young troop needs to seek advice from his leaders, his or her leaders, their peers, and they also need to seek advice from those that they lead. People's the number one resource.
So, Sergeant Major, following up on that, people's number one resource, would you have, if you were giving advice to, a newly enlisted soldier, a new NCO, what's that one piece of advice that you give them, like, hey, nugget of gold?
That would be embrace the challenges. Pathfinder schools, jump master schools, not easy. They're not easy, and there's a very, very high fail rate. And people don't like to fail, but you got to be willing to fail if you want to get to be the best that's out there. So you got to embrace those challenges, and if you want it, and it matters to you, and you're committed to it, you work hard for it.
So, sir, kind of going back to you, I know you kind of hit on this already, but what is that one piece of advice you'd give to a young officer out there, just newly commissioned into the formation?
Yeah, one piece of advice. I would say, I as stupid as it sounds, I would really say maintain your fitness. I just sat in on a officer career management board for another state. So I got to see quite a few packets, that were company level. And I was a little bit surprised to see how many soldiers that are middle of the pack soldiers, simply off the things that are easily measured in a board. So you have to kind of make yourself board ready. Because if you don't, you can get overlooked, by soldiers that are focused on it. So I guess if it's one thing though, it would probably be balance. If I heard somebody else give the advice that Sergeant Major did, I'd say balance. Because you can't be just single faceted. You have to be able to go do some of that other stuff. If you have to read, you have to self-develop, but you also have to carve out a little bit of time today to maintain that fitness and the resiliency piece as well.
So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some of your experience and breaking down what it's like to stand up a new unit and a little bit about that unique culture within the airborne community.
But thank you, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and share some of our story. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, and look forward to working with all of you again.
If you'd like more information on any of the topics we discussed today, please visit our social media pages in the links below. Tune in to Leaders Recon over the next few weeks as we bring in today's leaders and pioneers to discuss their experiences share their wisdom, and help you sharpen your skills as a leader. We will also be announcing opportunities for you to hone your skill as a leader in today's National Guard. See you next time. If you liked this week's episode of Leaders Recon, please subscribe below and leave us a 5-star review. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.